Part 43. Super Role Player. Author, Yuan-san Buletinji. Chapter 445. After 2:2, the 76ers played the backcourt and advanced to the front court. The 76ers continued to play the outside pick-and-roll cooperation. Angzi held the ball from outside, and Pau Gasol sent a screen. Angzi took the ball and drove into the penalty area, which immediately attracted Steven Adams' defense. He didn't continue to cut in either. Against the defense of Steven Adams, he turned around to take the ball and pushed towards the basket. Angzi's penalty zone singles immediately attracted the help of other Thunder players, and Durant rushed over. Angzi saw the opportunity, hit the ground and passed the ball to the outside. Jack Lauder is completely empty. This is a pretty good opportunity. But after receiving the ball, Jack Lauder's jumper missed the spot very seriously and hit the rebound directly. Kevin Durant, who was rushed into the penalty area, received the rebound. The 76ers offense failed, and Jack Lauder missed the open shot. After the Thunder got the rebound, they immediately fought back. Kevin Durant passed the ball to Westbrook. Westbrook rushed to the front court, without any pause, went straight to the basket and completed the layup. 4:2. With a lightning strike, the Thunder scored again. With the 76ers backcourt, Brett Brown yelled twice from the sidelines, roughly, to let the team pay attention to the Thunder's counterattack. Indeed, Westbrook's counterattack was too easy for that one. An 11 made an OK gesture to the sideline, and then personally held the ball from the backcourt to the front court. It's the same style of play, but this time, the 76ers made a mistake. After Angzi and Pau Gasol took a pick and roll, they passed an advance to the bottom line, but Nkaway's running position was a step slower and the ball flew directly out of the bottom line. Mistakes. Angzi shook his head helplessly. In the commentary, Reggie Miller thought, Angzi's pass is taken for granted. He can use the pick and roll to continue to attack the inside, but he seems to want to cooperate with his teammates and give them assists. Another offensive failed. The Thunder seized the opportunity and once again played a fast offense. It was Kevin Durant, an outside chasing three-pointer, and a successful hit. Jack Lauder's defense appeared in front of Durant's long arm. Very weak. After this three-pointer hit, the score became 7:2, and the 76ers fell behind in the opening game. Brett Brown walked to the sidelines again, this time without speaking, just akimbo, watching how the 76ers attacked. Angzi continued to take the ball in the backcourt. He had already thought about this attack. The continuous offense was not good. The 76ers had to score. Brett Brown went to the sidelines to supervise the battle. This also shows this. If the 76ers fail to attack again, perhaps Brett Brown is about to call a timeout. And Angzi's idea for this ball is to do it alone. Jack Lauder missed a goal and was counterattacked by the Thunder. An 11 passed the ball to Nkaway for an error, and the Thunder made a quick attack. Then Angzi didn't pass the ball altogether. Holding the ball to the front court, the Thunder continued to defend Angzi with Karen Butler. To be honest, this is the worst defense Angzi has encountered in the last few games. The Thunder did not pay attention to Angzi at all. Before, whether it was playing the Mavericks or the Magic or Bucks, the opposing head coach had to arrange for the team. Outside line single defenders defend Angzi, or arrange double teaming or co-defense tactics. As for the Thunder, Scott Brooks had only one breakthrough double team. At other times, he was relieved to let Karen Butler, a veteran who was not a defensive player, defend Angzi alone. Therefore, this attack Angzi chose a more secure singles. Taking control of the front court, Angzi used Nkaway's pick and roll to go in. Westbrook switched to Angzi. Angzi continued to break through. Although Jack Lauder was empty again, he never thought of passing the ball. It was a sudden increase, a dexterous change of direction directly toss off Westbrook and rushed into the restricted area. Steven Adams made it up again, but Angzi still didn't pass the ball and made a layup before Adams made up the defense. The basketball bounces into the hoop after hitting the board. Angzi scored his first score in this game. After scoring, Angzi immediately greeted his teammates to retire. The Thunder have played several fast breaks in succession. The 76ers have also learned their lesson. Angzi turned his head back to defense first. The teammates also quickly withdrew to the backcourt. After Angzi scored a singles goal, the commentators' side also sounded admiration. Reggie Miller said, "Angzi's choice for this goal is the right one. Don't always think about cooperating with your teammates. If necessary, you still have to score yourself first." Steve Kerr also nodded, "Indeed, when Angzi scores, the Thunder's defensive focus will lean to Angzi, so that the offense of the other 76ers will be easier." On the court, the Thunder attacked, Westbrook singled out Angzi, Angzi blocked, and then Westbrook chose to pass the ball or Durant. After receiving the basketball, he adjusted a step and then made another mid-range dry jumper. Swish hits again. Jack Lauder's defense has been very hard, but he just can't prevent Durant. In contrast, Angzi has done a good job of limiting Westbrook. Up to now, Westbrook has only scored 2 points through a fast break. At other times, under Angzi's defense, there are not many opportunities. So, Angzi thought for a while. He directly overturned Brett Brown's pre-match arrangement and decided to switch to the next wave of offense and Jack Lauder. He went to defend Durant and Jack Lauder defended Westbrook. In the 76ers offense, Angzi had another singles with the ball. He took the ball from the mid-range. After 2 steps, he turned over a jumper. With a scream, the basketball got into the basket obediently. The offense was successful, and the score difference changed. It became 6-9, and the Thunder still had a 3-point lead. Then, the Thunder attacked Angzi and changed defense with Jack Lauder. Durant is playing without the ball. Adu's ability to hold the ball is a bit poor among the superstars. It is basically the same as Angzi, who has not been upgraded and breakthrough. It just so happens that the Thunder also has a Westbrook who likes to attack with the ball, so Durant always it will appear as if there is no ball. In the face of Angzi's defense, Durant consciously felt hot, and after a reverse run, he caught the ball again, and faced Angzi's defense again. With a bang, the shot hit the ball and didn't make it. Inside, Asik grabbed the rebound, the 76ers quickly advanced, almost hit a wave of fast break. The Thunder's retreat is still very fast. The advantage of Steven Adams is that the entire lineup is very dynamic and fast. Failed to make a fast break, the 76ers stabilized and passed the ball continuously from outside, looking for opportunities. Brett Brown stood on the sidelines and nodded. After the instability of the opening, the 76ers gradually entered the state. Angzi's self-proclaimed change of defense against Durant immediately took effect. Angzi, who was tall and arm-length, directly defended Durant's attack. Pull up a jumper. The 76ers attack after continuous pick-and-roll screens from the outside. Gasol responded high and made a pass to outside the three-point line. Jack Lauder took the ball and shot it. Points hit. The score was evened. After the score was tied, Scott Brooks also stood up, walked to the sidelines and clapped his hands, beckoning his players to speed up the rhythm. Westbrook got the coach's instructions and immediately speeded up. Jack Lauder made up in front of Westbrook. Westbrook did not stop, but directly changed directions forcibly and broke through Jack Lauder's defense. After reaching the inside line, the layup was interrupted by Asik. Asik turned around and took the rebound, then passed the ball to Angzi. The 76ers got a chance of inverse score. Angzi took the ball and made a fast break, rushing to the other side of the front court, and Kawhi received the basketball and made a layup. At 11-9, the 76ers in turn led the Thunder by 2 points, and they played a wave of offensive waves of 7-0. Cut into the penalty area more. Pass the ball more. Scott Brooks continued to stand on the sidelines, shouting constantly. Westbrook held the ball to the front court and gave it to Serge Ibaka. He then crossed with Durant and Karen Butler. It was dazzling and the 76ers defense was disturbed. It's messy. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Ibaka directly hit the ball to Westbrook, who was cut short. Westbrook received the ball and made a layup, successfully hit. This time, the Thunder increased the number of passes, but the 76ers failed to prevent it. But then, the 76ers offense also scored. Anzi broke through with the ball from the outside and passed the screen and then made an emergency stop jumper and scored 2 more points. In this way, the offense of the two teams interacted with each other. After most of the quarter, the 76ers and the Thunder played 24-23, and the Thunder led by 1 point. To be continued. 8. Faster updates are all in. Super Role Player. Author, Yuen Sanbuletnji. Chapter 446. The two teams gradually replaced the benches, finishing the first quarter, and then the second quarter, the two teams continued to change. 135% 79-24, asterisk 6/810. The Thunder removed Westbrook and replaced Reggie Jackson, shooting guard replaced Jerry Millennium, power forward replaced Perry Jones, Serge Ibaka was pushed to the center position, plus Kevin Durant continued to play, and the Thunder's lineup became a semi-main rotation. The same is true for the 76ers. An 11 continued to stay on the court. Kawhi and Pau Gasol both left the field to rest. An 11 was pushed to the small forward position. Jack Lauder played as a power forward. The center was a substitute Cole Aldry. Odd, the outside line is a combination of James Anderson and Sean Livingston. The 76ers have put up a small lineup with great athleticism. The only big Cole Aldridge is also the type that can run and jump, so Brett Brown also changed the tactical play, we increase the speed. Go on, fight the Thunder. After reappearing, in the second quarter of the game, the Thunder got the ball. Reggie Jackson held the ball to the front court, Sean Livingston defended, and Kevin Durant on the bottom line started to run, a reverse run and screens, throwing away Anzi, receiving the ball directly back to the jumper, long arms dodged Anzi's subsequent interference. The basketball slipped into the hoop with a scream. Goal in. Kevin Durant jumped twice and turned back to defend. Anzi reflexively patted the basketball that fell from the hoop, handed it to Cole Aldridge, and took the ball directly from the back court. After taking control of the front court, Kevin Durant directly pushed forward. At the same time, other Thunder players also moved towards Anzi intentionally or unintentionally, and Perry Jones was even 2 steps away, waiting for the opportunity to double team. Obviously, during the break, Scott Brooks deployed a defensive strategy against Anzi, double teaming and assisting defense. Scott Brooks must do this. Who made Anzi pass his singles in the first quarter and score consecutively? He has already scored 14 points. Anzi knew that as soon as he broke through, the Thunder would immediately double team. However, he did not panic. At the moment when he changed direction, he directly passed Durant and broke through. An 11 thought very simply. If the Thunder doubles, he passes the ball immediately. If not doubles, he can overpower Durant with this ball. 1 goal. Perry Jones immediately wrapped up, but Anzi didn't pass the ball either, because Perry Jones came a bit slow. Anzi accelerated, pressing Durant into the three-point line, and then suddenly stopped, and swayed 2 people, Kevin Durant and Perry Jones, at the same time. He took a long 2-point shot and brought a little back. Amplitude. The basketball is like a sharp sword, passing through the sky above the court and directly falling into the basket. Anzi scored a long-range 2-pointer 1x2, and a backward shot. The Thunder need to double team faster. Reggie Miller made an understatement of the ball, and completed a fallback jumper 1-on-2. The fans on the sidelines were already surprised. Although it was a time lag, in the eyes of the fans, the ball was still quite good. It's against the sky, especially when it's still in. But for Reggie Miller, making a 1-2 fallback jumper is basically a very common goal. In Reggie Miller's view, isn't it the right way to make a fallback jumper? Facing a double-double team, using a backward jumper to avoid the defense, a normal goal, Reggie Miller is still looking for the Thunder's defensive problem. He believes that if the Thunder doubles faster, it will be fine. If the Thunder double team faster, Perry Jones withstands Angzi's bottom set, Kevin Durant locks the space in front of Angzi, Angzi can only pass the ball, and the pass will make a big mistake. Chance. Reggie Miller analyzed Angzi's ball, and on the Thunder side, they also played a wave of fast offense. It was Kevin Durant, who made a pick and roll with Reggie Jackson outside, and after throwing away Angzi, he made another dry jumper and hit it again with a scream. Looking back, the Thunder's defense still remained the same. Durant only defended Angzi. The other players looked at Angzi, and they would double team immediately when Angzi broke through. With this ball, Angzi chose to pass the ball to Sean Livingston, and then began to move. Livingston took the ball in high position, Angzi made a circle and then went directly to the weak side. The Thunder's defense mainly accumulates the strong side, so there are not many defensive players on the weak side. After Angzi ran to the weak side, he directly opened his hand for the ball, and then faced Durant's single defense. The Thunder have accumulated too many defensive players on the strong side, and now, in order to create an opportunity for Angzi singles, the 76ers have completely opened up. Therefore, no Thunder players have come to double-team Angzi for the time being, because once they ran over, the goal is too obvious, and the omission is too obvious. Therefore, Angzi faced Durant's single defense for a long time. Durant waved his long arms and interfered with Angzi. At this time, Angzi's original pivot foot took a step to the right, and then quickly followed up with his left foot and quickly passed Durant with one step. This step was very beautiful. Durant stared at the basketball in Angzi's hands wholeheartedly, and didn't respond at all. When Angzi passed, he could only follow behind and be ashamed. On the other side, Serge Ibaka hurriedly moved towards Angzi, but Angzi did not rush a few steps, rushed to the middle distance position, an emergency stop jumper, and shot the basketball in his hand. It was still very accurate, and with a scream, he went straight in. At the beginning of the second quarter, Angzi scored consecutive goals. And then, Durant was not to be outdone. On the offensive end, he struck Angzi hard, rushed into Angzi, and made a layup. Angzi was fully defensive, but Durant scored a goal. It can be seen that Durant is strong. Durant also made 2 consecutive shots, and the second goal was a strong hit, which was obviously a better match with Angzi. Angzi was also not convinced. Durant beat himself, he also forcibly beat Durant 2 goals, and then, the 76ers attacked, Angzi continued to single Durant. The defensive end Durant also began to fight, waved to prevent Perry Jones from double teaming. Then, waving his long arms, he dealt with Angzi's back singles. After Angzi's 2 hard hits, seeing no one to help defend, he squeezed into the three-point line and directly turned over to make a jumper. With a scream, he entered again. After scoring the goal, Angzi raised his shooter against Chesapeake Energy Arena's boo and raised 3 fingers to indicate that this was the third goal. In turn, Durant also continued to force Angzi. The 2 consecutive one-on-one, so that the fans on the sidelines watched a lot of fun, and the score was particularly tight. Durant made another strong hit, and after forcibly breaking into the three-point line, it was another dry jumper. The basketball flew out, bumped twice on the hoop, and then got in again. Go in 2. Durant hammered his chest hard. Reggie Miller yelled, "Kevin Durant's dry jumper hits again. He feels very bad now." Steve Kerr also said to the side, Angzi and Durant's 1-on-1, so far it is still 3:3. They both scored 3 goals in a row. And then, after Steve Kerr's crow's mouth, an 11 hit the iron, facing Durant's strong single defense, an 11 broke into the inside and missed a layup. Durant, who guarded the ball, roared and took off the rebound, looking very excited. Steve Kerr was about to announce that Durant had won this duel. Then, an 11, who refused to admit defeat, was also on the defensive end, lay a hard, and directly blocked Durant's throw. As a result, the defensive end showed momentum, and the two still tied. The Biofen war continued. Angzi's offense, possession of the ball from the outside, continuous shaking, Kevin Durant was unmoved, his breathing was short, and he looked nervous. This one should be a more important one, because both of them missed. One ball, the state is not so hot, this ball is likely to be lost again. With continuous shaking and false moves on the outside line, Angzi could not find a chance. As time passed, Angzi became a little anxious. At this time, he suddenly took a big stride and rushed towards the inside line forcibly. Durant seemed to have found a chance to steal the ball, suddenly rushed out, stretched out his long arm, and patted the basketball in Angzi's hands. At this time, Angzi was also alert. He discovered Durant's intentions, then dribbled the ball directly from the hips, avoided Durant's steal, and then turned around, passed and lost. Durant. The next step is simple, passing Durant's Angzi to the inside line, a light chopping button, a bang, and another 2 points. There was a sigh at the Chesapeake Energy Arena. Durant was a good defense, but at the last moment, he made a mistake, or at the last moment, he was impulsive. But Durant still has a chance. He can still equalize the difference between the two. Therefore, Durant takes the ball directly from the backcourt and controls it all the way to the front court. The Thunder opened the front court completely, leaving enough room for Durant. Scott Brooks was also happy to see Durant and Angzi playing one-on-one, so he just stood on the sidelines and watched with interest. The same goes for Brett Brown. Coach Brown has strong confidence in Angzi's defense. Coach Brown believes that once, Angzi can defend Durant's offense. Durant chose a safe singles style, holding the ball with his back and playing Angzi with his back. Then, directly turned around and leaned back for a jumper, avoiding Angzi's cover. The basketball quickly got into the hoop. With a rapid rotation. Go in again. Chesapeake Energy Arena went crazy. The duel between Angzi and Kevin Durant. It continues. In the second quarter, the game suddenly became a one-on-one performance between Angzi and Durant. The fans at the scene looked very excited, and the commentators were similar. Steve Kerr especially liked seeing this one-on-one scene. Although Reggie Miller didn't speak much, the smile on his face also showed that he also liked watching. To the one-on-one drama. According to Reggie Miller, one-on-one performance was very common in the 1990s, but modern basketball has gradually developed towards a team, and one-on-one individualism is hard to see. To be continued. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Super Role Player. Author, Yuen Sanbuletnji. Chapter 447. Durant scored again. If you count the first goal in the second quarter, then in the second quarter until now, Durant leads Angzi 5:4. So in the front court, Angzi started singles again. However, it is clear that after Angzi's consecutive singles goals, the Thunder did not want to see the score have been so anxious. After Angzi took the ball again, the Thunder's defense was ready to move and want to continue to double-team Angzi. With this ball, an 11 insisted on singles, even if he knew that the Thunder would double-team him. Accelerating a breakthrough, pulling to the middle distance, Perry Jones immediately moved over, raising his long arm. The Thunder chose to double-team Angzi, and at this time, the 76ers immediately gave Angzi a pick-and-roll cover. Cole Aldridge blocked Durant, Angzi accelerated and changed direction, swayed Perry Jones, and jumped back to a sudden stop. The basketball bounced into the hoop and in again. However, then, the one-on-one matchup between Angzi and Durant was over. The Thunder chose to double-team Angzi on the defensive end, and turned around. Reggie Jackson on the offensive end directly caught Sean Livingston's defensive error. Broke into the inside lane and succeeded. Reggie Jackson's scoring interrupted the matchup between Angzi and Durant, which also meant that the rare one-on-one matchup in the NBA was over, and the sidelines sighed with unfinished meaning. Then, the 76ers began to take advantage of their small lineup on the court to defend firmly and quickly counter-attack, but because the Thunder is also a small lineup on the field, the 76ers counter-attack and fast attack effect is average. However, after the 76ers changed into a small lineup, they did a good job defensively, quickly rotating defenses from the outside, and continuously defending the Thunder's rapid offense. Halfway through the second quarter, the Thunder also made a substitution, switching back to Westbrook, allowing Westbrook and Reggie Jackson to form an outside double point guard combination, replacing Durant with the rest. The 76ers didn't make any substitutions, they continued to play in a small lineup, and continued to play fast offensive and fast defensive tactics. The second quarter was finished quickly. After Angzi scored 14 points in the first quarter, he scored 12 points in a single quarter in the second quarter. A total of 26 points were scored in the two quarters, and the state was hot. After halftime, with Angzi's excellent performance, the 76ers actually tied the Thunder at 58-58 in the away game, and the score was still very anxious. The 76ers saw the hope of winning. For the 76ers, Angzi's fiery touch is a point they can take advantage of. Angzi scored consecutively and scored 26 points in the first half, which is almost half of the 76ers total score. The Thunder, which lacks perimeter defensive players, is obviously difficult to deal with Angzi's consecutive singles. Therefore, after considering this point, Brett Brown chose to let Angzi continue to play. He wanted to fight for this victory. After all, before that, the 76ers were in a state of instability. They would always win one game, lose one game or even lose two games. Brett Brown saw this game as an opportunity. If they win, the 76ers will no longer have a running-in problem. That's the problem. A victory against a strong enemy will bring about a lot of changes. In the second half, Angzi continued to play. Angzi continued to make sudden shots, scored 8 points in half of the quarter, and continued to lead the 76ers to kill the Thunder. The score went from 58-73. The anxious game made everyone hooked. In the Thunder's offense, Westbrook attacked with the ball and hit the basket. Angzi moved one step horizontally and made up for the past. With a bang, the two collided, Angzi fell to the ground, and Westbrook threw the basketball to the hoop. With a beep, the referee's whistle sounded. "Is this offensive foul?" Reggie Miller said questioningly. On the other hand, Steve Kerr gave a completely different answer. The referee whistled Angzi's defensive foul. Defensive foul? Reggie Miller was a little surprised. On the court, Angzi also spread his hands and expressed doubts. Because of this ball, Angzi found a position in advance and blocked Westbrook. It shouldn't be a defensive foul, or even a foul. Soon, a replay appeared on the big screen. The replay showed that Angzi stood in the penalty area a step earlier, and then Westbrook rushed over. Reggie Miller concluded, "This is a foul that can be blown or not." It was a bit late for Angzi to stop, so the referee had nothing to say. Steve Kerr on the side also nodded. If you look at it in slow motion, Angzi's defense is fine, but as Reggie said, this foul can also be blown, because Angzi just stood in the penalty area. Westbrook is here. A foul that can be blown or not, there is nothing to do. The referee has blown the foul, and Angzi can only admit it. Westbrook walked to the free throw line and began to execute the free throw. The first free throw was an easy hit, and then, the second free throw was too hard, and he jumped out of the basket. Pau Gasol then took off the rebound and threw the basketball to Angzi. Angzi quickly advanced with the ball, and instantly shot a wave of counterattacks. The front court formed a 2-on-2. Angzi and Kawhi performed the fast break. Only Reggie Jackson and Durant retreated in time for the Thunder. Angzi rushed to the front court, looked at both sides, did not find the time to pass, so the next short body accelerated, against Durant's defense to the basket. Then, a three-step layup, with the right hand holding the ball against Durant for a layup. Durant refused to give up. With a bang, Angzi directly collided with Durant, and the basketball came out of the basket. Beep. The referee's whistle sounded in time, but when Angzi stood up on the floor and looked back at the referee indicated that it was an offensive foul. Offensive foul? Are you kidding me? Are you kidding? And 11 walked towards the referee. He got fouls on both offense and defense, which is really helpless. At this time, in the commentary, Reggie Miller and Steve Kerr's interpretation of this foul was different from the last one. Angzi got his second foul in this quarter, and it was also his fourth foul in this game. In this foul, the referee whistled Angzi's offensive foul. From the slow motion, Kevin Durant has been playing move, so obviously, this is a blocking foul. If it was the last time a defensive foul could be blown or not, then this foul is obviously the referee's wrong decision. Angzi argued with the referee for a while, and 2 consecutive misjudgments were made. Otherwise, the referee would blow this kind of partial whistle. And 11 also knows the reputation of the Thunder double whistle. After all, he is also a veteran who has played against the Thunder for 2 years in the Western Conference. After arguing for a while, Angzi turned to defend. Then, and unsteadily played a few rounds, Angzi continued to bite behind the Thunder with the team. In the 9th minute of the third quarter, the Thunder attacked. Westbrook held the ball outside for a while, and then handed the ball to Durant. Durant singles Angzi with the ball, an accelerated breakthrough, rushed to the three-point line, and then, against Angzi, leaned forward and held the ball in a big circle. Beep. The referee's whistle hesitated for a while, but finally blew it. After blowing the whistle, the referee pointed to Angzi. This is Angzi's thug's foul. Angzi stunned for a moment, and then reacted, thinking about the ball, and thinking about it. This ball seemed to be a foul, because Durant used his trick, swiping his arms to make a big swing. Angzi has fouled again. I am afraid he will leave the field now, because this is his 5th foul. In the third quarter, Angzi was in a foul crisis. Although there was also a misjudgment by the referee, it is impossible to change the penalty that has been made. Angzi has already got his 5th foul, and this time he has to leave early. Up. Reggie Miller and Steve Kerr shook their heads. The referee's misjudgment and stunned whistle have almost ruined this supposedly exciting game. Now, Angzi has to leave the field. The 76ers have no Angzi, which can be foreseen. What's more, the Thunder will play a wave of offense, directly locking the victory of the game. In Tencent Sports live broadcast room, K-Fan and Sukun are said to be more straightforward. Angzi got 3 fouls in this quarter. The first foul can be blown or not, and there is nothing to say. The second foul is a complete miscalculation. Obviously, that goal was a blocking foul by Durant, and this third offense is indeed a foul, but in fact, fans know that the third offense was Durant's star whistle. This is Durant's famous stunt. K-Fan said something strange. Sukun also knew that some Durant fans in China would be dissatisfied. He immediately summed up, in the final analysis, Durant and Westbrook have star whistles, but Angzi does not. Mobile phone, please visit. Super Role Player. Author, Yuen San Buletinji. Chapter 448. NBA star whistle is also divided. Kobe Bryant, LeBron James were once the darling of referees. LeBron James even has the name of a godson of David Stern. And now, NBA's godson is obviously the Thunder Shuang, the Thunder Shuang, also known as the Thunder Shuang whistle, Durant, also known as Shore Ante, and Prince Du, Westbrook, also known as Prince Wisdom. In today's league, in addition to the Thunder, there is also the Rockets' James Harden, who is also the player with the most star whistle. James Harden, also known as Timadon and Porcelain, is best at making foul shots. In terms of veteran players, LeBron James lost a lot of star whistles because of the decision event, and Carmelo Anthony also lost most of the star whistles due to the Madison fight in the Nuggets and the forced transfer to the Knicks. Kobe Bryant is getting old, so today's league is basically the world of the third and youngest of the Thunder. Although Angzi has grown rapidly, he is still inferior to the Thunder third and younger in the star whistle, and even worse than James. However, there is a rumor that because of Angzi's performance in the All-Star game, Adam Xiaohua intends to train Angzi as a new generation of NBA leaders, and it is likely to get many star whistles in the future. But at least this game, Angzi is still very difficult to get such treatment. After Angzi left the field, Brett Brown replaced James Anderson, but obviously, it is impossible for James Anderson to carry the team forward alone like Angzi. So in the last few minutes of the third quarter, the Thunder made a 14-4 offensive climax, opening a 10-point gap. Then in the fourth quarter, Brett Brown resisted the impulse and continued to press Angzi on the bench. Then, the Thunder's main force was exhausted, and there were two consecutive waves of 7:2 and 9:2 offensive small asterisk, and quickly moved the point difference was open to 22 points, during which Brett Brown called a timeout and replaced Angzi, but it was still to no avail. After Angzi played, instead of looking for the feeling of the state, he made a 4-4-1, which gave the Thunder a chance to expand the lead. With the last 7 minutes left in the fourth quarter, the difference came to 22 points. Then, considering the difficult road trip that followed, Brett Brown replaced Angzi when the team had no hope of winning. In the game, Angzi scored 38 points, 14 points in the first quarter and 12 points in the second quarter. He played most of the third quarter and scored 10 points. In the last quarter, he made 1 of 4 shots and only scored 2 points. When the overall situation is set, carefully think about it. If there were no inexplicable 3 fouls in the third quarter, the 76ers would not have such a rout in this game. The last 2 quarters of the game also gave people a better understanding of Pau Gasol. As a second boss, Pau Gasol is a good thigh, and as a big boss, Pau Gasol is still very unqualified. He was not able to stand up when Angzi was not present. The game ended early. Taking into account the next road trip, Brett Brown changed the main lineup ahead of time and gave up the game. In the end, at the Chesapeake Energy Arena in Oklahoma City, the 76ers lost the game. 115-92, 23 points difference is not too small. The 76ers ushered in a fiasco, but K-Fan and Sukun believe that this fiasco, the referee accounted for most of the factors, because the referee, the hot state of Angzi was forced to off the field. 76 talents will be taken away by the Thunder's continuous wave of offensive waves. Sukun also believes that this game clearly proves that even if Pau Gasol comes, the most important player in the 76ers team is still Angzi. To a certain extent, the 76ers have suffered from Angzi dependence. After losing the game, Angzi was not in a good mood, and went back to the locker room alone, and then declined all interviews. But Brett Brown said a lot in the press conference after the game. "Coach Brett, this game is your 23rd defeat this season. The door to the playoffs is close at hand, but the team always loses because of the running-in problem of introducing new players. How long will the state last? First of all, I don't think our state is still in an unstable state. Although we lost, we drew a tie with the Thunder before Angzi was forced to leave the field. The Thunder are strong and they are the first in the Western Conference. For the team, it is normal to lose to them, so this defeat does not mean that our state is unstable. Brett Brown directly denied the 76ers' current state of instability. The reporter then asked questions and asked the focus of the game, "What do you think of Angzi's 3 fouls in the second half of the third quarter?" Brett Brown shrugged, "It is impossible to say that I have no opinion, but I know that if I tell the truth, I will definitely be fined." There was a burst of laughter at the press conference, and Brett Brown continued, and told me that if I was fined, he would pay the fine for me, so I decided to tell the truth. I think the referees in this game dominated the game. They ruined a game that should have been very anxious and very exciting. Angzi's 3 fouls, at least 2 of which can be ignored, but the referees all called the penalty. This caused N to fall into a foul crisis, and then we had to replace him. Then, the Thunder gradually widened the point difference after N left the field. So it's obvious that the referee dominated the game. If there was no such foul, we would definitely fight the Thunder to the end. The outcome of the game is hard to say. Brett Brown attacked the referee after the game, and then received a ticket from the league without any accident. When the 76ers received the ticket, they had already reached the Utah Plateau, and Abby took another plane to Phoenix, preparing to spend the first few months of pregnancy under the care of Mrs. Hornacek. Although it was early spring in Utah in March, the weather was still very cold. Taking advantage of the break before the game, the players hid in the hotel cafe, drinking coffee and chatting. Angzi made a pot of tea in front of him, with a faint aroma, holding a book in his hand called Jordan Biography. Angzi has recently developed the habit of reading player biographies, because Angzi also wants to write a personal biography for himself. The teammates sat scattered around, chatting. Then, Brett Brown walked in, saw Angzi, walked to the opposite of Angzi and sat down. "And, the ticket has arrived." Before the press conference after the game, Angzi did promise that if Brett Brown was fined for criticizing the referee, Angzi would bear the fine. So Angzi smiled and accepted the ticket. "How many fines?" The ticket showed the amount of $50,000, and Angzi held up the phone. $50,000, online bank transfer. The corners of Brett Brown's smiling eyes were bent. "No problem, let's transfer money online." The players gathered, and Angzi transferred $50,000 to Brett Brown in front of everyone. The teammates gave themselves a thumbs up. Angzi seemed to be in pain for a while, and it was nothing more than the referee's unfair judgment on the court, and a piece of meat was dug off the court, although for Angzi, it was just a piece of meat on his fingernails. But what Angzi didn't know was that Brett Brown's attack still had a certain effect, and Adam Silver began to ask about it. For Angzi, a player with a vast Chinese market behind him, Adam Silver still pays more attention to it, but obviously, the league did not expect Angzi to make such a huge improvement in the new season, so that Angzi could not get the league's strength in time. After the performance of the All-Star game, Adam Silver began to attach importance to Angzi. After Brett Brown criticized the referee, Adam Silver watched the video of Angzi's 3 fouls in person, and then called the senior officials of the referee committee. However, apart from some of the senior leaders of the league and the referee committee, no one knows what Adam Silver said in this call, and no one knows what benefits this call will bring to Angzi. However, in the back-to-back match on March 8, Angzi began to feel some obvious differences. In the back-to-back game against the Jazz, Angzi scored several times in a row and encountered tough defense from the Jazz. Most of the fouls that didn't make a layup, and most of the fouls that could be blown or not, were blown. Angzi also got a free throw. The referee basically blew the ball for the layup as long as it was in contact with the body, and the referee basically blew it, and Angzi also received an additional penalty. In the end, the 76ers won 104-92, Angzi scored 29 points, and another 3 rebounds, 9 assists, 3 steals, and 2 blocks. Anzi scored 29 points and only took 15 shots. He won 10 rare shots. In the free throws, 9 of them were made and 29 points were easily scored. To be continued. Mobile phone, please visit. Super Role Player. Author, Yuen San Buletinji. Chapter 449. On March 10, the 76ers continued their away game. This time, they returned to the East from the West and played away against the New York Knicks. WW Suim La. After the trade of Tony Roten, the Knicks' record has recovered, but the Knicks still lost in the face of the 76ers, who won the Jazz, and the morale was high. Anzi performed well. After the last game tasted the sweetness, this game continued to hit the inside line, got 9 free throws, plus 8 of 14 shots. Anzi used a very low shot in exchange for it. A high score of 27 points, plus 5 rebounds, 11 assists, and 2 steals, led the team to easily defeat the Knicks 123-100. After 2 consecutive victories, the 76ers gradually entered the state. But then, the 76ers will face a strong enemy in the East, the Indiana Pacers, currently ranked number 1 in the East. It's still an away game, and it's back-to-back fighting, so no one is optimistic that the 76ers can win. The impact of back-to-back fighting is huge, but Anzi didn't feel that way. He played too easily in the last game, and Anzi didn't. No matter how hard it is, the Knicks will lose. So in an interview with reporters before the game, Anzi said with ease, "The Pacers are indeed a strong opponent, but in other words, it is the same. In contrast, we are also a strong opponent to the Pacers, so this time the game will be very exciting. The Pacers have a chance to win, of course we also have a chance." Brett Brown directly started talking about tactics. "Frank Vogel is a good coach. I guess he will use the defensive tactics of shrinking the inside to deal with us in this game, because N's breakthrough state is so good during this period. Coach Jair will definitely make targeted arrangements, but we are not afraid of such targeted arrangements, because we will also change tactics. Anzi has a strong breakthrough, but at the same time he is also an excellent shooter." It seems that Brett Brown has leaked out all the team's tactical changes, but in fact this was deliberately done by Brett Brown, and he was setting smoke bombs. Frank Vogel is not a fool. He naturally understands that Brett Brown is tempting himself to make the wrong tactical arrangement. Therefore, before the start of the game, he did not make too many changes to the team's tactics. He just asked Paul George to play the game. Attention should be paid to the defense of Anzi. Frank Vogel did not make too many changes because of Anzi. Of course, he also has this confidence. The Pacers' defensive system is already very complete. Roy Hibbert on the inside is the gate of the penalty area, and Paul George on the outside. Both George Hill and George Hill are strong players in single defense. In this game, Frank Vogel is going to hand over Anzi to Paul George for single defense. On the one hand, he has confidence in Paul George's defense. On the other hand, Frank Vogel thinks very simply. Anzi is the star of the 76ers. Paul George is the star of the Pacers. Even if Paul George can't guard Anzi, the two will explode. The Pacers have a more complete system and better players. The Pacers will win the game in the end. When the time came to the evening, the Cons Echo Arena was already hot, and the Pacers fans waved their towels, cheering cards, and mobile phones in their hands, cheering to welcome the Pacers and the 76ers. Indiana is a state with the best basketball atmosphere in the United States. There are too many talented NBA players from the high school league here. The Crazy Indiana Championship is the best high school league in the United States. McKinley, Greg Oden, Gordon Hayward is all out of this tournament. Also because of the fiery high school league, the Pacers have a group of crazy fans in this land. After the 76ers came out, a group of fanatical Indians in the back row of the arena wore Indiana-specific clothing and made a weird call of woo-ah-woo-ah, which caused a whistle in the arena. In terms of atmosphere alone, the Conseco Arena is comparable to the Jazz's home game of the Devil. Angie walked to the sidelines, sorted out his jerseys, and then hugged Paul George and talked a few words. This was the first meeting between Angie and Paul George after the All-Stars. The two naturally made a few ruthless words, and then each greeted their teammates. The Sixers' starting lineup has not changed much. The current two-game winning streak proves that their tactical running in is basically in place. The team's starting lineup will naturally not change much. Point guard Nkaway, shooting guard Angie, small forward Jack Lauder, power forward Paul Gasol and center Omer Asik. The Pacers' starting lineup has not changed, with double guards George Hill and Lance Stevenson, small forward Paul George, power forward David West and center Roy Hibbert. Turner Sports temporarily adjusted the number of live broadcasts in the United States, listing the matchup between number 1 in the East and number 3 in the East as a national live broadcast, and sent Reggie Miller and Steve Kerr to explain the game. Returning to Conseco, Reggie Miller also received some welcome. As the greatest star in the history of the Pacers, although he did not leave even a championship trophy for the team, Reggie Miller still relies on his unyielding fighting spirit and tenacious fighting spirit have won the love of Indiana. However, returning to the Conseco Arena, Reggie Miller came as a commentator. He also performed very neutral and fair. He commented on the starting lineups of the two teams at the beginning. Reggie Miller actually thought that the 76ers had a better chance to get the victory of the game. After the 76ers got Pau Gasol and Omer Asik, the team's internal strength has been greatly strengthened. On the contrary, on the Pacers' side, Roy Hibbert's performance this season has been good and bad. David Way Stewart is very old, so the 76ers have an advantage in the interior. In this game, Brett Brown is likely to put on a tactical play to attack the inside, and the so-called Angie before the game will make the Pacers shrink the inside, but Frank Vogel should also not forget that Angie is also a top shooter. The speech is actually a smoke bomb. If the Pacers want to win, they must shrink the inside line. If the defense is expanded outside, the Pacers' inside line will be defeated by Angie's breakthrough, Paul Gasol, and Omer Asik's strong attacks. Frank Vogel will naturally not be fooled. In this game, the Pacers' defense on the inside is still in place. After the opening jump ball, Asik won the jump ball, Mka held the ball and advanced to the front court, Angie dropped to the bottom line to run empty-handed, the Pacers immediately retracted inside, not giving Angie enough space. But Angie still got the ball, and ran out to catch the ball, and cut in with the ball. But obviously, N11 still underestimated the Pacers' determination to double-team him. After the breakthrough, he immediately encountered a double team. After the double team, N11 immediately chose to pass the ball. The pass was too obvious and was directly interrupted by Paul George. The opening gave Angie a mistake. After stealing the ball, the Pacers directly launched a fast break counterattack. Paul George and George Hill held the ball and went down quickly. After the front court scored the ball, George Hill made a layup and scored first. After the Pacers launched the fast break, the Conseco Arena immediately rang out bursts of cheers, one after another, which gradually made the entire Conseco Arena tremble. After the opening quick break and counter-attack scored, Paul George and George Hill slapped their hands, and then stood beside Angie again. Frank Vogel folded his chest with both hands. The opening shot has basically proved that his defensive arrangement is effective. For the 76ers, although they were counterattacked by the Pacers in the opening game, they were not impatient. This time, Angie held the ball and faced Paul George's perimeter defense. Paul George's defense was very good, he opened his arms and blocked Angie in this way. Angie made several fake moves in a row, but the center of gravity of his body did not change. So Paul George did not move with it. It seemed that he had seen through Angzi's fakes. Action. Angzi made a gesture, and Pau Gasol pulled out for a pick and roll. Angzi slapped the ball suddenly, and then accelerated to the free throw line. David West quickly moved a step, let go of Pau Gasol, surrounded Angzi, and cooperated with Paul George to wrap Angzi. Dumplings. It's another double team. This time, Angzi passed the ball in time after encountering a double team. The moment Paul George posted Angzi, Angzi made a quick pass and passed the basketball into the penalty area. In the penalty area, Jack Lauder, who cut through the air, took a big stride and directly received the basketball. Lance Stevenson, who followed him, was chaotic and was directly kicked off by Jack Lauder with an acceleration. Then, just saw Jack Lauder facing Roy Hibbert's defense, a jump, twisted in the air and squeezed Roy Hibbert sideways, stretched his arms, and slammed the basketball into the hoop. There was a loud noise. Jack Lauder completed a dunk. Although the fans on the sidelines did not cheer, but the whistles that came from it proved that this dunk was very beautiful. Jack Lauder's dunk. Beautiful. Angzi completed an assist, Reggie Miller exclaimed and then mentioned Angzi. However, the Pacers' strict defense of Angzi is already evident. Angzi will encounter unprecedented challenges in this game. On the other side, CCTV, which also broadcast the game, their focus is not on the defense suffered by Angzi, but on Jack Lauder's dunk. Jack Lauder dunks too much. This ball is almost one of the top 5 goals today, right? Maybe, after all, it was a dunk from another person. Unexpectedly, Claude's physical fitness is also so amazing. In this game, the two commentators of CCTV were Sun Zhenping and Su Jikan. Their commentary made the fans in front of the TV helpless. However, Tencent Sports did not broadcast the game live, and they could only listen to the two veteran commentators. The explanation by the member. The 76ers returned a goal from the Pacers, Jack Lauder dunked the game, and the score came to a 2-2 tie. If you like this work, you are welcome to vote from the starting point. Your support is my biggest motivation. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Super Role Player. Author, Yuen San Buletinji. Chapter 450. The Pacers' offense was also their first positional offense in this game. W.Swimming.Law. As the team's master, George Hill was once favored by the Spurs' old man Vicky, who could replace Tony Parker and become the Spurs' next-generation master. At that time, the rumors surrounding the Spurs were that the Spurs wanted to trade Tony Parker to help George Hill. But in a subsequent deal, the Spurs unexpectedly sent George Hill away, and then got Kawhi Leonard, who is now gradually coming to the front desk. And George Hill, who moved to the Pacers, has gradually dull performance and general organizational skills. His strong points are athletic ability, scoring ability, and outstanding defense. Therefore, in the Pacers, the task of organization is given to the newly emerging Lance Stevenson or Paul George, and this ball is also the same. After advancing to the front court, the basketball is handed over to Lance Stevenson. Lance Stevenson faced Jack Lauder's defense, made a gesture, and directly used the pick and roll to get into the three-point line. After dodge the defense, he went directly to a mid-range jumper and missed it with a bang. The insider Asik showed his strength, stuck in position and grabbed a rebound. Immediately afterwards, the offensive and defensive transition, the 76ers wanted to play a fast break, but the Pacers retreated quickly enough to fail. The fast break did not succeed, and naturally entered the half-court position offense and defense. The Pacers' defense is still the same, shrinking defense, double-teaming Angzi. Angzi fell to the bottom line at halftime and did not participate in the offense at all, but waited for 7 or 8 seconds for the bottom line. After a few cooperations in the front court, he still couldn't find a chance. Angzi was also very helpless. and immediately trot from the bottom line and ran out. Running to the outside to catch the ball, Angzi faced Paul George's single defense, and the offensive time was running out. Therefore, this ball can be regarded as a pot ball. After receiving this pot, Angzi didn't waste any more time. He speeded up, squeezed Paul George into the three-point line, and then made an emergency stop jumper, facing Paul George before the timer turned red. Defensively, throw the basketball out. With a bang, I didn't enter. This goal Paul George has interfered in place, and it is normal not to score. There was a fight in the penalty area, but Asik came out with a roar, grabbed the rebound directly, and succeeded in making a dunk. Just looking at the first two goals, Omer Asik's personal performance suppressed Roy Hibbert, the all-star center. Needless to say, a defensive rebound. This offensive rebound was obviously grabbed by Asik pressing Roy Hibbert. After grabbing, he also completed a supplement and scored 2 points. Then, with the Pacers' offense, Lance Stevenson tried to break through with the ball for a while, but failed, and finally gave the ball to Paul George, leaving Paul George with 6 or 7 seconds, so this is also a catch. Ball. Paul George made a lateral breakthrough, and Angzi immediately made up. Then, Paul George carried Angzi for 2 steps. Compared with Angzi, Paul George had plenty of time. After 2 steps, it was time for Paul George to take a shot, and an 11 directly reached out to interfere. Sure enough, Paul George shot the basketball on a horseback. By coincidence, an 11 also stretched out his long arm and sealed the basketball with a snap. Block, Reggie Miller yelled. At the same time, with a buzzing sound, the timer buzzed for the end of 24 seconds. The Pacers killed time and Angzi blocked the game and helped the 76ers get the ball. Then, in the 76ers offensive round, Mkaway held the ball. Facing the Pacers' strict defense, Angzi played without the ball and went through the screen several times. Eventually, he received the basketball and shot the ball directly. Paul George's interference slowed a step, and with a scream, the basketball passed through the net frame. The ball scored. Angzi finally scored. After scoring off the ball, the Pacers' defensive pressure is even greater. On the offensive end, Paul George faced Angzi's defense and made a mid-range shot once again. The insider Omer Asik once again defeated Roach. Bert grabbed the rebound. After grabbing the rebound, the 76ers immediately launched a fast break. Mkaway broke through with the ball, and all the Pacers' defensive attention was placed on Mkaway. As a result, after Mkaway broke into the inside line, a no-look pass was passed directly to an 11 who had an open outside line. Angzi received the basketball and was unguarded. This is a good opportunity. Angzi slowly shot after catching the ball. A three-pointer. 9:2. The 76ers started with a wave of small climaxes, and the carefully arranged Pacers were directly overwhelmed by Angzi's off-ball. Instead, their offense was due to Angzi's strong defense and did not play a bit. Come out. Except for the quick break at the opening, the Pacers have not scored a point in the game until now. Frank Vogel was also a little impatient. He didn't call a timeout either. He stood on the sidelines and waved his hand. Fans and reporters who are familiar with the Pacers understand that Frank Vogel meant to let his team hit the rim more, rather than shooting arbitrarily from the middle distance. If you think about it carefully, Lance Stevenson and Paul George fired continuous mid-range shots. At the beginning of the game, continuous outside shots would naturally not be very high, especially when they encountered the 76ers outside single defense duo. In the case of Angzi and Jack Lauder. After Frank Vogel made a gesture, the Pacers' offense immediately changed. George Hill held the ball, hit the basket with the help of a pick and roll, and made a layup, finally solving the Pacers' current scoring shortage. On the 76ers side, Angzi ran without the ball again and then took the ball and shot it, banged and missed. Immediately after the Pacers turned around and hit the 76ers a ball, Lance Stephenson cut to the basket and succeeded. The score gradually pulled back. The defensive strength of the two teams in the opening game is not small. The Pacers put all their energy into the defense of Anxi, which gave Pau Gasol a lot of opportunities to play. On the 76ers, they played against the Pacers. The perimeter of the team used more single defense, so the Pacers soon stabilized the situation by constantly covering the basket and David West's continuous mid-range shots. In the second half of the first quarter, the Pacers gradually entered the state, and they were more powerful. They gradually found the long-range shooting feel through the cooperation of outside Paul George and Lance Stephenson, as well as the shooters such as George Hill, and began to occupy the lead on the field. With 2 minutes left in the first quarter, Brett Brown was forced to call the first timeout of the game, because Paul George and George Hill made 2 3-pointers in a row, overtaking the score, 24-20, the Pacers 4 points ahead of the 76ers. After the timeout, the two teams gradually changed into a rotation lineup, and Anxi continued to play. The first goal after coming back from the timeout was a strong breakthrough to Paul George, and while impacting the basket to cause Paul George to foul, he also scored a goal. After the penalty hit, there is 1 point left. With this 2-1, Anxi also increased his personal score in the first quarter to 12 points. In the first quarter, Anxi's efficiency was not high. He only hit 4 goals in 10 shots, including a 3-pointer and 3 free throws. However, the performance at the critical moment attracted Reggie Miller's praise. Anxi's performance this season is really strong. Now it seems that he has a good chance to compete for the regular season VP trophy. People's record is not bad. Anxi's personal performance is even better. Combining the two, I even think that this season's VP trophy already belongs to Anxi. Steve Kerr shook his head. But the media doesn't seem to be optimistic about Anxi. As far as I know, Anxi has never been in the top 5 on the VP rankings launched by the NBA official website before, and even more in the first 2 months of the league. I haven't made it in the top 10. I have only gradually entered the top 10 in the last 2 months, hovering in 8, 9, and 13 positions. In contrast, Anxi's opponent, Paul George, has always been in the top 5. Once broke into the top 3. Reggie Miller frowned. The VP ranking is basically the vein of the regular season VP. Judging from the ranking, Anxi's ranking is indeed a bit low, and it seems difficult to win the regular season VP trophy. However, Reggie Miller looked at Anxi's personal data again. He averaged 287 points, 42 rebounds, 74 assists, 34 steals and 0.8 blocks per game. In addition to the team's 41 wins and 23 losses, Anxi is eligible to take the trophy of VP. Compared to Paul George, Anxi's disadvantage is just a record, but the regular season VP is a personal honor, and the record has reached the standard. It is reasonable to say that it does not affect Anxi's other advantages, but the 8th, 9th, and 10th rankings are really low. If you like this work, you are welcome to vote from the starting point. Your support is my biggest motivation. Super Role Player. Author, Yuen Sanbuletinji. Chapter 451. The first quarter was quickly finished. The score of the two teams became 27-29, and the Pacers still led by 2 points. Swimming.law. Anxi made 5 of 11 shots in the first quarter, scored 14 points, 2 rebounds, 3 assists and 2 steals. His performance was pretty good, but his opponent Paul George also scored 12 points on 5 of 10 shots, and had 4 rebounds and 3 assists, the two matchups in the first quarter. In the second quarter, the two teams continued to switch to the bench lineup. The 76ers teamed up with Mkaway and Paul Gasol to lead the substitutes James Anderson, Francisco Garcia, and Cole Aldridge to play, and the Pacers also replaced Paul George, played by Lance Stephenson with substitutes Andrew Bynum, Danny Granger, Luis Scola, and Donald Sloan. The Pacers lineup in the second quarter is almost a problem lineup. Lance Stephenson and Andrew Bynum are both problematic youths. Among them, Andrew Bynum had just been traded to the Bulls by the Cavaliers and was immediately waived, and the Pacers, who wanted to take away the dominance of the Heat in the Eastern Conference, chose to sign Andrew Bynum to continue to strengthen the team's internal strength. The last game against the Celtics was Andrew Bynum's debut in the Pacers. Bynum scored 11 points, 10 rebounds and 1 block. He performed well and seemed to be perfectly integrated into the Pacers system and lineup. However, Brett Brown believes that Bynum was able to perform well in the game against the Celtics because the Celtics were too short on the inside. In this game, Bynum still played as a substitute and played against the Celtics. The energetic Cole Aldridge was then suppressed by Cole Aldridge. The feel of the two teams' bench lineups is not good. The opening of the game continued to play iron, but the rebounds were successively picked off by Cole Aldridge, and the 76ers also occupied the advantage on the court. Frank Vogel had to replace the mediocre Andrew Bynum and replace him with David West, and the Pacers gradually returned the disadvantage. In the 7th minute of the second quarter, the two teams tied 36-36 and the 76ers had the ball. Brett Brown walked to the sidelines and called a timeout. Taking advantage of the timeout, the two teams were replaced by the main players. For the 76ers, Angzi replaced Mkaway, and the other positions remain the same. The shooting guard is still James Anderson, small forward Francisco Garcia, and the inside is the partner of Pau Gasol and Cole Aldridge. For the Pacers, Paul George reappeared. He replaced Lance Stephenson. In addition, the Pacers also replaced George Hill. The lineup became point guard George Hill and shooting guard Danny Granger, small forward Paul George, inside David West and Luis Scola. After Angzi re-entered the game, he still faced Paul George on the defensive end, although he was playing as a point guard at this time. The advantage of Angzi as a point guard for the 76ers is that the distribution of the ball will not be too complicated. They can play some simple offenses and defenses, such as Angzi directly breaking through to attract defensive points, or Angzi holding the ball with the help of screens and then break through to the basket. And many more. And 11 did exactly this for the ball. With the help of the screen, he broke through, dashed off Paul George and rushed into the three-point line. It was another emergency stop jumper and quickly shot the basketball. Without interference, Angzi's hit rate is still quite high. With a scream, the basketball enters the frame, the score becomes 38-36, and the game continues. In Pacers' offense, Paul George also wanted to hit Angzi, so he turned his head and back to play Angzi solo. Angzi's turnaround jumper was interrupted by Angzi. In terms of attacking ability alone, Paul George is still inferior to Angzi. Inside, Cole Aldridge grabbed the rebound. After Angzi took the basketball, he continued to press to the front court. Continuing to face Paul George's single defense, Angzi made a quick breakthrough, attracted the defense and quickly divided the ball. The ball passed to the other side of Paul Gasol scored again, and James Anderson in the bottom corner took the open position. The ball, a three-pointer with a scream. At 41-36, the 76ers widened the points difference. Returning to the Pacers' offensive time, Frank Vogel once again stood on the sidelines and made a gesture, and Paul George was no longer singles. In fact, the Pacers' lineup is a full offensive lineup. The inside doubles are all power forwards with singles ability. Although Danny Granger has plummeted due to injury, his three-point ability is still there. George Hill is the same, has a very strong fixed-point shooting ability. Obviously, the Pacers' correct way of playing should be multiple passes. After all, their current lineup on the field is a lineup that everyone can score. Passing can create a threat, and passing can easily score. Paul George broke through and scored the ball. David West played inside and scored again after attracting defense. George Hill on the other side scored empty-handed and scored a layup, 41-38, narrowing the point difference by 3 points. Immediately afterwards, the 76ers made an offensive error. Angzi's pass passed to Luis Scola's leg, and George Hill, who was quick-eyed and handy, grabbed the basketball and launched a fast break. There was another counter-attack. Paul George faced James Anderson's defense and hit a high throw. At 41:40, there is only 1 point left. The 76ers offense stabilized. After Angzi held the ball for a while, it was another breakthrough, rushing into the three-point line, facing Paul George, and a straight back jumper, which made a scream. A very smooth backward jumper. Angzi clenched his fists after making a shot, celebrated a little, and turned back to defense. The two teams played fiercely, and the point difference came back and forth. Soon the game came to the last 2 minutes of the third quarter. The score was still very anxious. Paul George and two long shots made the score 52-52 flat. Then, with the 76ers offense, Angzi held the ball from the outside. After a screen, the player defending Angzi became David West. This is a small hit in another sense. Angzi is naturally not polite, holding the ball and squeezing the ball. After stopping David West, he accelerated directly one by one, and Luis Scola on the other side hurriedly made up. While continuing to break through, Angzi quickly lifted the ball and passed it through. Cole Aldridge, who was waiting for the ball under the basket, waited for the basketball. The basketball was unbiased and just flew into his hands. After he got the basketball, Cole Aldridge pulled it up, slammed it, and dunked the basketball into the basket. Basket. 54:52, the 76ers continue to lead. Looking back, the Pacers played a quick offense. After a simple cooperation from outside the three-point line, Paul George flashed Angzi's defense and shot directly. The basketball bounced from the rim with a bang and bounced directly out. The 76ers continued to occupy the inside advantage, and Pau Gasol grabbed the rebound. An 11 received a pass from Pau Gasol. This time he was not eager to attack. This ball was a good opportunity to open up the points difference. An 11 decided to play away patiently. After taking control of the front court, an 11 made a gesture, and Pau Gasol pulled out from the inside. An 11 then passed the ball to Pau Gasol, playing a high position response tactic. Angzi, who turned without the ball, immediately began to run, and a reverse ran around the baseline, continuing to attract Paul George's mark. However, Angzi's running did not give his teammates an excellent opportunity. The outside line looked for a 7 or 8 second chance. Seeing that time was running out, basketball once again returned to the low position of Angzi. Angzi played Paul George in the low post. After 2 hits, he turned around and made a move. Paul George clung to Angzi and stretched out his hand to interfere, but Angzi made a fake move. Suddenly he changed his hand and shot with his right hand. In an instant, he changed to a left-handed hook. Paul George, who could not stop the car, also hit Angzi's right hand. Beep, the referee's sharp whistle sounded at the same time, an 11 left-handed hook shot. The basketball made a big circle in the air, and finally got into the hoop with a scream. Goal in. Angzi becomes 2-1. The fans of the Conseco Arena began to hold their heads and sigh. Angzi is too strong. The consecutive singles goals have shown the gap in personal abilities between Paul George and Angzi. Obviously, Angzi is a better superstar. An 11 walked to the free throw line and booed his penalty. The penalty also hit. Angzi scored 3 points successfully, the points difference opened to 5 points. With 48 seconds left in the second quarter, if 24 seconds are played, the two teams will have time to attack each. But the Pacers didn't think so. They controlled the time a little. With 35 seconds left in the game, Paul George assisted David West and hit a half stop. As a result, with the last 35 seconds left in the second quarter, unless the 76ers come to a quick attack, the Pacers will have an extra attack no matter what. Super Role Player. Author, Yuen San Buletinji. Chapter 452. Leave an offense for the Pacers. Angzi didn't think so. Angzi decided to attack quickly. The Pacers started a full-court defense, obviously wanting the 76ers to use up their offensive time, so that they can have an 11-second time to attack again. And 11 also knew very clearly that as long as he completes an offense within 10 seconds, the 76ers will have the ball on the final attack in the second quarter. However, it is more difficult to complete this quick attack under the tight defense of the Pacers. Defense. Defense. Amidst the cheering of the Pacers fans on the sidelines, the 76ers served in the backcourt. Paul George crossed in front of Angzi, and Angzi squeezed forward, as if to squeeze Paul George away to catch the ball. As a result, Paul George got stuck and refused to give up. Just when everyone thought Cole Aldridge, who served from the bottom line, was about to hand the basketball to James Anderson, he suddenly took a step behind him. Cole Aldridge made a lob and Angzi received the basketball directly. There was a burst of exclamation from the sidelines, and the fans only saw Angzi made a long pass directly and the basketball flew directly to the front court. Do the 76ers want to play a quick attack? It seems too hard. Francisco Garcia receives the ball, but the chance is not. Steve Kerr just prepared to say that the chance is not good, because Danny Granger did not give up for Garcia's marking, and 11 flew directly to the front court. Francisco Garcia was another transfer ball, and Angzi, who rushed to the front court, directly shot an undefended three-pointer at the top of the arc. Paul George leaped from behind Angzi, but that didn't help. Because Angzi's three-pointer has already been shot. Swish. The crisp sound of wiping the net drew another exclamation. The ball is scored. It only took less than 5 seconds. The 76ers completed a successful attack. Angzi's goal made Reggie Miller couldn't believe it, and in CCTV's live broadcast room, Sun Zhenping sighed, Angzi really dared to play. He ran back to catch the ball, and then went straight to the front court and accelerated himself. It took about 4 seconds to get the ball in the front court, and the whole process took about 4 seconds, adding in the time the basketball took to leap in the air. It took a total of 5 seconds, which is too strong. Sujikan also said, Angzi's 3/4 round turn-back run is very strong. It is said that the 3/4 round turn-back run in full condition can be completed in only 3 seconds, and the speed is very fast. Angzi has already thought about this ball. After 5 seconds of offense, the Pacers' faces went dark. The 76ers gave them 30 seconds of offense, but they could only use 24 seconds at most. Maybe they can learn from each other and come to a quick attack. However, even if they play a wave of 5 seconds offense, the 76ers can also run out of offense time, leaving only 1 second for the Pacers. They still can't do anything. So the Pacers simply don't worry about the time of the game anymore. After all, this is only halftime, not so important. At the last attack of the half, the Pacers suppressed the rhythm and organized the attack slowly. In the end, with 7 seconds left in 24 seconds, Paul George passed the screen without the ball, received a pass from George Hill, then shot the ball, and made a mid-range shot with a scream. The 76ers had 10 seconds left. After serving from the backcourt, Angzi rushed to the front court with the ball. There was an emergency stop and a backward jumper, but he didn't make it. So far, the first half ended, 60-56, the 76ers lead by 4 points. Angzi played well in this game. He played half of the second quarter and scored another 10 points, plus 14 points in the first quarter. At the end of the half, Angzi scored 24 points, the best of the game. If the performances of Angzi and Paul George in the first quarter were comparable, Then in the second quarter, Anxi completely blasted Paul George, both offensive and defensive. In the second half, because the 76ers temporarily took the lead, Anxi was left off the court to rest. Pau Gasol and Kawhi brought Asik, Jack Lauder and Troy Daniels to the field. Although Anxi did not play, it is clear that the 76ers inside trio is still very hot in this game. Pau Gasol scored consecutively when David West and Luis Scola took turns playing together. With one enemy to continue to maintain the 76ers lead. In the second half of the third quarter, the 76ers still had a 6-point lead, and Brett Brown was not in a hurry to switch to Anxi. But Frank Vogel felt the urgency of the situation and directly replaced Paul George. Without Anxi's constraints on the court, Paul George played fairly well and made contributions immediately after playing. After making 2 consecutive mid-range shots, he used a three-pointer at the end of the third quarter to help the Pacers narrow the gap to 2 points. Thus, the fourth quarter became the final decisive moment. At the beginning of the fourth quarter, Anxi played. After a full break in the third quarter, he descended like a tiger, and he was in a mess. At the beginning of the game, Paul George succeeded with a strong backup jumper after the singles, and he hit directly. With only 2 points between the two teams, Anxi stood up again. At the beginning of the fourth quarter, the lineup of the two teams was a mixed lineup of the main substitutes. The main players who played in the third quarter were placed off the court for a rest. On the 76ers side, Anxi partners Sean Livingston and Francis Kogersha, Antoine Jamison and Cole Aldridge. The Pacers are Paul George with C.J. Watson, Russell Butler and inside Andrew Bynum and Ian Mossingmai. After Anxi made a strong opening goal and hit a fallback jumper, the 76ers lead extended to 4 points. Then, back to the defensive end, Anxi made another timely supplement and blocked Russell Butler's layup. After grabbing the basketball, the 76ers launched a fast break. Anxi passed the ball and assisted Francisco Garcia to shoot a chasing three-pointer. In just 2 or 3 goals, the point difference was stretched to 7 points. Frank Vogel didn't mean to call a timeout, just shouted a few words from the sidelines. The Pacers slowed the pace of the offense, and Paul George held the ball to face Anxi's defense. After several transfers from the outside, the Pacers found an opportunity. Watson took the ball and cut into the inside. Cole Aldridge greeted the defense. Facing Aldridge, C.J. Watson changed hands and made a successful goal. Frank Vogel was relieved and sat back. It seems that as long as the Pacers steadily attack, the game can still be temporarily stabilized. After all, the game has not yet reached the final moment, and Frank Vogel is not in a hurry for the time being. With the 76ers offense, Anxi and Jamison came to an outside pick and roll, and all the Pacers' defensive attention was placed on Anxi. Anxi scored the ball directly, and Antoine Jamison received the ball and shot it directly. There was a clear sound and a three-pointer hit. Although Antoine Jamison's competitive state is declining a bit quickly, the basic skill package is still at the peak of as an all-around offensive power forward without of capacity. Antoine Jamison can attack from the inside and face the frame or shoot three-pointers from the outside. However, after the decline in competitive status, you can only do some fixed-point shooting. After hitting a three-pointer, the 76ers continued to widen the points difference. 2 consecutive records are that the 76ers have led the Pacers by 8 points. Frank Vogel frowned, but he still felt uneasy, walked to the sidelines, waved, and commanded again. The Pacers continued to steadily attack without the slightest impatience. Paul George's breakthrough was the same as the previous round. After the breakthrough, the ball was followed by C.J. Watson. The difference is that C.J. Watson received the ball from outside the three-point line, but this is a great opportunity. C.J. Watson made a direct outside shot, and Sean Livingston pounced on it. With a bang, Livingston's defense was relatively timely, but in the end it was defended. C.J. Watson's three-pointer shot out, the insider Cole Aldridge took off the rebound, and the 76ers turned defense to offense. C.J. Watson's three-pointer missed, and Frank Vogel's heart beat abruptly. He had an ominous premonition. Sure enough, the 76ers launched a fast break. Anzi speeded up the front court directly, past Paul George, took a big leap and rushed to the hoop, sending the basketball toward the hoop. Beep. The referee decisively blew the whistle. The basketball got into the hoop with the whistle. Once again 2-1, Anzi waved his arm abruptly, and the score difference had reached 10 points. It seemed that the Pacers were going to play wave after wave to end the game. Frank Vogel was already waiting on the sidelines. He was about to wait for Anzi to finish the free throw and call a timeout. To be continued. Please remember the domain name of this book's first publication. Reading URL of the mobile version of Romance Novel Network. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Super Role Player. Author, Yuan-San Buletinji. Chapter 453. Anzi executed the additional penalty and hit the penalty steadily with a scream. The point difference came to 11 points. With a beep, the referee whistled again, and the Pacers called a timeout. After a timeout for tactical play, Frank Vogel replaced the main force, and the 76ers also replaced Jack Lauder and the insider Omer Asik, while Gasol stayed off the court to continue to rest. In fact, everyone has forgotten because of the strong performance of the 76ers. In this game, the 76ers are actually playing back-to-back, but because the team is in good shape, Brett Brown gave Anzi a rest in the third quarter and let Paul Gasol. He played a whole quarter, so at the crucial fourth quarter final moment, Brett Brown also took a risk and let Pau Gasol continue to rest. And replacing Asik and Jack Lauder, the purpose is obviously to strengthen the defense. The team already has an 11-point lead, and then do a good job of defense, this game can basically be won. The 76ers quickly did this. They strengthened the defensive end and kept the 11-point difference until the end of the game. In the end, without Pau Gasol playing in the fourth quarter, the 76ers beat the Pacers 105-94 away to get a wave of 3 consecutive victories. And this 4 consecutive road trip is finally over. The 76ers have 3 wins and 1 loss, and their performance is pretty good. Next, they will return to the home court and continue to fight after replenishing their energy. After the game, Anzi and Paul George greeted and talked a few more words. Finally, the two agreed to meet in the playoffs. See you in the playoffs, and I hope you can beat Miami and make it to the Eastern Conference Finals. Anzi scratched his armpits. Why don't you face Miami? Because of Miami or us, it will not fall to third or fourth. Then what if you fall to second? Wouldn't we meet in the Eastern Conference semifinals? Anzi opened his eyes wide and continued to question. No, that's impossible. We will lock the first place in the East until the end of the regular season. Well, then we'll see you in the East Jew. See you in the East Finals, 1-point wins. After the game, Anzi accepted an interview from the media. In this game, he scored 37 points, 4 rebounds, 11 assists, 4 steals and 2 blocks. He performed well and completely suppressed Paul George. Faced with a series of questions from reporters, Anzi also responded, "Yes, we played very well in this game and suppressed the Pacers from start to finish." Paul George? He is a good player. He is one of the top 10 players in the league. Me? Maybe I'll be a little bit better than him, laughs, well, top 5 in the league. What do you think about the MVP rankings that have never been in the top 5? No idea, it's just a ranking. Yes, that's right, the playoffs are coming soon, our goal is very simple, as far as possible to the end. In the face of the media, Anzi coped with ease and laughed at the right time, indicating that this was a joke, don't take it seriously. After the interview, the 76ers did not stop at all and boarded the plane back to Philadelphia. Next, they will have a 3-day break. In these 3 days, the 76ers did not relax and continued to start their training day. For the 76ers, the winning streak during this period does not mean that they don't need to make changes. In order to achieve what Anxi said in interviews with reporters to go to the end in the playoffs as much as possible, Brett Brown and Lloyd together with DePairs, continue to improve the team's offensive and defensive strategy. The improvement is simple. Lloyd Pierce has made improvements to the team's defense. He has made more demands on Anxi in team training. He asked Anxi to make more defenses and appear more in the penalty area. To the position between 3 points, help the team control this position. As for Jack Lauder, Lloyd Pierce decided to functionalize Jack Lauder, which means to make Jack Lauder an individual defensive weapon on the outside of the team, focusing on single defense against the opponent's arrow player. For example, in the last game against the Pacers, if according to Lloyd Pierce's latest changes, then the defending Paul George would not be Anxi, but Jack Lauder. The advantage of this is that Anxi, who is also excellent in assisting defense, can put more energy on improving the team's overall defense, and Jack Lauder's defense is also very good, and focusing on single defense may also be effective. In addition to the changes on the defensive end, the offensive end, the team also made changes. Brett Brown hopes that Nkaway will strengthen his ball-free ability. He is now more and more aware of the threat of Anxi with the ball in his hand. Almost every position in the half-court, Anxi can only hold the ball and the opponent's defensive player. They must be horrified and have to completely shift the defensive focus to Anxi. Therefore, Brett Brown plans to allow Anxi to take the ball more and Nkaway to cut without the ball more. These changes are easy to say but difficult to make, and require long hours of running in and practice. And in the interval between training, the players will also have some fun, such as playing some games or something. After finishing the morning training, the players who had just eaten the nutritious meal and had to be digested began to look for a digestive exercise method. James Anderson directly issued a proposal. Why don't we play a one-to-many offensive game? What? Anxi asked again before he heard it clearly at first. James Anderson added, why don't we play a game, we put 5 people to attack, how about you defending with Jay and Omer? 3 defenses and 5? This. Anxi just wanted to reject this proposal on the grounds of are you looking for fun? Lloyd Pierce came out, clapped his hands and applauded, James' proposal is good, and I think I can try it. The assistant coach spoke, and Anxi was helpless and had to try. On the field, James Anderson personally selected his teammates and formed an athletic 5-man lineup. Point guard Nkaway, shooting guard James Anderson himself, small forward Troy Daniels, power forward Francisco Garcia, and center Pau Gasol. Seeing this lineup, Anxi wanted to say, James, did you kid do it on purpose? In this lineup, in addition to Nkaway and Pau Gasol, there are 3 people who can shoot from the 3-point line, which means that, anyway, with a Sikh guarding the basket, Anxi and Jack Lauder is unable to plug all the loopholes in the outside line, it seems very insoluble. Therefore, Anxi had to speak out to make restrictions, your lineup is too ridiculous. 3 can shoot 3-pointers. How can I defend against G and G? Lloyd Pierce came out with this fit, well, let's be a restriction. The outside line is not allowed to shoot 3-pointers, but only allows to hit the basket or mid-range shots. Lloyd Pierce's restriction basically limits the range of activities of the offensive quintet to the 3-point line. In this way, it is much simpler, Anxi and Jack Lauder only need a lot running, there is still a chance to completely lock the offensive group of 5. That's what Anxi thought. He felt that he had a chance. But after the game started, Anxi was dumbfounded. Nkaway became a transfer station for the ball, barely taking the ball, James Anderson made a shot from the outside, and Jack Lauder made up for it. Then James Anderson scored the ball to Nkaway, Nkaway made a breakthrough, and Angzi made it up again. Then, Nkaway scored a goal. Francisco Garcia on the other side received the ball, a breakthrough, Asik had to make up, Garcia scored the ball, inside Gasol dunked after receiving the basketball. In the first round, the group of 5 scored easily, and the group of 3 didn't even struggle. Angzi was stunned, and then sternly shouted, "Come again." Then, Angzi strengthened his running defense, and the 5-man offensive method remained unchanged. Nkaway was still standing at the top of the arc when the ball was in his hands. He broke through, forcing Angzi to step forward to cover the defense. Then divide the ball and give it to Francisco Garcia. Because Garcia's initial position is outside the 3-point line, he also needs to dribble and find a chance to shoot after 2 dribbles. Angzi made it up again in 2 steps. Garcia did not hesitate and continued to divide the ball. Nkaway took control again. Nkaway rushed to the penalty area with continuous strides, and Asik greeted him. In the end, Nkaway also divided the ball, and it was Pau Gasol who scored the goal. Pau Gasol gently put the basketball into the hoop, and there was applause from the sidelines. Seeing the goal, Angzi shook her head with her hips akimbo, and said with a smile, "It's too difficult, 3 defenses and 5 defenses." Please remember the domain name of this book's first publication. Reading URL of the mobile version of Romance Novel Network. Super Role Player. Author, Yuen Sanbuletinji. Chapter 454. I think some restrictions still need to be made. Jack Lauder also breathed a breath. Lloyd Pierce appeared again. He nodded, then make a little restriction. The offensive team can't pass more than 5 times. In addition, the offensive team can only launch from outside the 3-point line except Paul. For offense, you must not catch the ball within the 3-point line, or shoot 3-pointers. 5 times, the ball happened to be in the hands of everyone on the offensive side once. It seems that Angzi and the others only need each person to defend once to complete a successful defense. So, the game started again. 5 passes, the 5-man offensive team has to think about it. The 5 people discussed carefully, and on the defensive side, Angzi also discussed with Jack Lauder and Asik. Omer, you just stay forbidden to move, whoever hits the basket, you go to make up. Asik nodded, he understood. Jay, you are in charge of Michael and Troy. Francesco and James, leave it to me. After a little arrangement, the game started. Nkaway attacked from the outside. He didn't rush to pass the ball. After all, he only had 5 chances to pass the ball. Nkaway broke through with the ball, and Jack Lauder pushed it up hard. Angzi cruising in the middle distance position, ready to make up for defense at any time. Nkaway chose to pass the ball. The first pass was passed directly to James Anderson. James Anderson broke through and Angzi made up. Without any hesitation, James Anderson passed the ball for the second time and moved to the other side in a wide range. Garcia received the ball. Angzi couldn't make it. Jack Lauder had to throw away Nkaway and hurried over. Garcia did not force it, and continued to divide the ball. For the third time, Troy Daniels on the other side received the ball. This time Jack Lauder couldn't make it. Angzi immediately dropped James Anderson and rushed over. But it was still a step too late. After holding the ball and cutting into the 3-point line, Troy Daniels made an emergency stop jumper and made a precise hit. The offensive team took 3 points and once again defeated the 3-man defensive team. An 11 shook his head, very helpless, but this time, he also saw some light of victory. Where is the dawn of victory? In fact, it is very simple. As long as the outside line Angzi and Jack Lauder fill up a bit faster, and the defensive position selection is better, it is entirely possible to lock the offensive group of 5 within 5 passes. There was more than half an hour before the noon break. Angzi shouted, "Go on. Then, continue the game." Lloyd Pierce smiled and talked with Brett Brown. "Brett, What do you think of a defensive system centered on N, J, and Omer? Brett Brown nodded, yes, I hope they can practice something. Angzi and Jack Lauder made up defenses quickly and assisted quickly. Asik focused on protecting the basket, supplemented by two defensively decent players, even if the starting defensive system is constituted. Brett Brown breathed a sigh of relief. He did not expect that James Anderson's proposal would allow the 76ers to find a good way to exercise the team's defensive system. After the three-day break, on March 15, US time, the 76ers ushered in the Grizzlies' challenge at their home court. This season, the Grizzlies have continued their strength from previous seasons. They have scored 38 wins and 27 losses so far this season, and their record is only a little worse than the 76ers with 42 wins and 23 losses. The Grizzlies' continued strength is not because of any superstars in their team. Whether it is Zach Randolph, Mike Conley, or Mark Gasol, none of them can be regarded as superstars. At most, they are all-star players. And the specialty of the Grizzlies' survival in the top 8 in the West is their defense. Lionel Hollins created a top defense in the league. Although he left the Grizzlies this season, his successor Dave George did a good job. While maintaining the defense, he also slightly strengthened the team. Attack. Faced with another strong enemy, the 76ers played very hard at home. The game played in the second half of the third quarter, and the game was still anxious. The two teams' scoring percentages were not high, and the scores were not high. At the end of the three quarters, the score was only 52-62. The 76ers were 10 points behind. This score, as usual, was only the 76ers' halftime score. Obviously, the two sides staged a defensive battle in this game. For the Grizzlies, the 76ers performed worse. Angzi's performance was not very good either. With Tony Allen's defense, Angzi only made 6 of 17 shots and scored 20 points only on free throws. At the decisive moment of the fourth quarter, the 76ers had poor prospects. Turner Sports commentators Magic Johnson and MCBRYN believed that the Grizzlies with a more stable defense in the fourth quarter were more likely to win the game. On the 76ers side, Brett Brown arranged the fourth quarter tactical play during the rest periods of the third and fourth quarters. When the scores of the two teams are equal and the shooting percentage is not high, the best way to maintain the score is to attack the basket. Therefore, Brett Brown's tactical arrangement is mainly to attack the basket. Arrange aside slightly, and the fourth quarter begins. In the fourth quarter, the 76ers field lineup was point guard Nkaway, shooting guard Angzi, small forward Jack Lauder, power forward Pau Gasol and center Omer Asik, all of them played out. On the Grizzlies side, Mark Gasol sits in the penalty area, power forward Zach Randolph, small forward Tasha and Prince, and Mike Conley and Tony Allen outside. The Grizzlies have this lineup, almost everyone has. With superior single defense capabilities, Mark Gasol and Tony Allen are regular visitors to the best defensive team. In this game, Angzi did not perform very well after facing a tight defense. In the last quarter, the 76ers first attacked, Angzi broke through with the ball and faced Tony Allen's defense. Tony Allen's defense is very aggressive, pressing an 11's dribble, an 11 beckoning Asik to give him a pick and roll, and then both of them ran towards the inside. Mark Gasol decisively threw a C-away Graham, double-team Angzi. Angzi chose to pass the ball, a lob pass to Asik. Asik looked up inside and watched the basketball fly over, and then he caught the ball and dunked. The Grizzlies' offense, Mark Gasol hit the singles in the middle distance, turned around and beat Asik with a jumper, and also hit. The difference is still double digits. With the 76ers offense, Nkaway took possession of the ball from outside, and after controlling the rhythm for a while, he passed the ball to Angzi singles again. Although Angzi's hit rate in this game is horrible, but at the critical moment, Angzi is the most reliable. After receiving the ball, Angzi turned around and played singles. Out of trust in Tony Allen's defense, the Grizzlies didn't double team and let Angzi singles Tony Allen. Angzi pushed forward and pushed to the mid-range position. The Grizzlies felt bad. Tasha and Prince hurried over to help defend, but Angzi had already turned around and shot a backward jumper. This is Angzi's conventional scoring method before the breakthrough. In contrast, it is still very stable. After the backward jumper, the basketball swishes across the net, the ball is scored, and the point difference is once again narrowed to 8 points. The Grizzlies continue to attack. In the hands of Dave George, the Grizzlies' offensive rhythm has accelerated slightly, but it is still very slow. The main battle is positional warfare. In today's fast-paced league, it is a miracle. McKinley quickly advanced to the front court, Zach Randolph made a high-quality screen, and McKinley headed towards the basket to kill. But just as he accelerated to the basket, Angzi quickly moved horizontally, directly made up, and stood firmly in the penalty area, blocking McKinley. Boom! McKinley didn't realize that Angzi had made up his defenses, so he slammed into it. Because of his instability, McKinley lost the basketball in his hands. Angzi grabbed the basketball with a short body, and then moved forward quickly. The Grizzlies immediately retired across the board. As a defensive team, their retreat was very fast. The 76ers did not make a fast break, Angzi simply suppressed the rhythm, the main success rate. The 76ers have scored twice in the fourth quarter, which is a good development trend for the 76ers, who only scored 52 points in the first 3 quarters. However, the 76ers did not score this goal. This is the case. Angzi continued to play with the back. At the critical moment, Angzi still believes in his backside skills. Offensive routines. This time, Angzi pushed back to the free throw line and turned around to make a shot. Marc Gasol wrapped up. An 11 passed the ball and then Asik layup, which was a must. But Asik slipped, and the layup missed the basket. To be continued. Please remember the domain name of this book's first publication. Reading URL of the mobile version of Romance Novel Network.